So now we're going to go ahead and hop into DCS World and continue on with the flight school campaign that I've been working on. We did the cold start and practice mission in the last one, so I never did figure out how to fix to get this to actually successfully complete. I'll work on that later, but for now we're going to go ahead and skip that and move on to mission 2, which is the relocation flight mission. I do have my head tracking that should be working, but we'll see right now. I have it on a separate camera, so ideally it won't be a problem unless the game just froze up on me, and then, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do then. I'm hoping it's not a freeze. I'm hoping it's just there's just a graphical lag while it's loading. Okay, sometimes it does. Sometimes it does that. It's actually mildly annoying when it does, but there's nothing I can do about it. If it does that, it does that. I can't fix it. All right, so we're going to wait for this to load. Now, as we play through all of these, I'm actually going to do them in real time, unless I know that there's going to be a long stretch where there's nothing happening and there's no narrations or anything like that. So just be aware. This is going to take a little bit to get through, but you're going to get a complete run through. For most of these, I've already done full playthroughs of them, but I want to have one single playlist where we do one playthrough through the campaign and have that recorded for posterity. For those of you who are interested in purchasing this, I did reach out to the developers to see if I could figure out getting it put up on the web store. If that doesn't end up panning out, I'll figure out some way of posting it myself, and that's going to suck, but, you know, it is what it is.
Good evening. It's time to head over to Vatsiani. Go ahead and complete the cold start procedure we learned this morning.
Oh. I need to turn the head tracking back on, I would imagine. Yes. There we go.
The cold start checklist is included in your kneeboard documentation, along with the mission card for this flight, which can be accessed with the assigned key binds. All flights from this point forward will include kneeboard documents with any relevant information you need, so you can always refer to either the mission briefing or your kneeboard as references. Until we complete the navigation check ride, though, I'll include visual cues for the process so you can get used to the order of things.
Come on. I think you're supposed to wait for something for that, but I don't remember. Alright, so now I will zoom through this a little bit to get to the part where we can actually turn the displays on. Because, you know, nobody wants to sit here waiting for things to start up. It takes a while. Oh, I forgot that's what's going on. I forgot to actually put the throttles up. You can't really start without the throttles up, huh? Okay, checklist and the FCS page. Map turned off, stored heading. Left engine on, FCS reset, rudder trim, radar, FLIR on the seat. Chaff, the ECM stuff, TACAN turned on, ILS turned on, IFF on, data link, both data links. I'll go back after we're done with all of this and fix that, because it's a pretty minor thing that just needs to be fixed later. And even if I don't remember to fix it, I don't think it'll screw anybody up. They'll just have to look up that, hey, we need to fix that. Okay, we'll fast forward through the alignment process. Alright, that's that. Get this on the ground.
Awesome.
Alright.
Now that we're all ready to go, let's get our navigation set up. Using your preferred MDI, press the menu push button until you're on the support page, then press the HSI push button. On the right side, press the waypoint push button to activate waypoint navigation. Press the up arrow.
Okay, give me a second. Clearly my pedals aren't plugged in or something. All right, I'm not sure.
Button to set waypoint 1, then press the sequence 1 push button to activate the flight plan. On the bottom left of the UFC, press the COM1 channel selector knob, then type in a frequency of 113.000 and press enter so you can monitor the frequency. Take your time while moving down the taxiway. Make small throttle adjustments to keep your aircraft moving, while also making left and right rudder adjustments to keep your aircraft centered on the taxiway centerline.
Alright. We're eventually getting this stuff going. I don't know what to say other than that sucked. Sorry about that. Okay, I really need for this the tracking software to stop freaking out.
You're approaching the entrance to the active runway. Start slowing down using the brakes and follow the taxiway centerline as it curves toward the runway using the rudder controls. Bring the aircraft to a stop just before the runway threshold, marked by the horizontal white line. Come to a stop here. Double check that you've activated waypoint navigation on your HSI, that sequence 1 is activated, and that you've selected waypoint 1 as your active waypoint. The tower has already cleared us for takeoff, so look left and right down the runway to ensure that no aircraft are on the runway, as well as not on a final approach for landing. Then pull out onto the runway, turn to the right and try to place yourself right on the runway numbers, 07 in this case. We're ready for takeoff. Activate the brakes to hold the aircraft in position while advancing the throttle to full mill power. Once the aircraft's engines overcome the brakes and it begins moving forward, release the brakes and do your best to use the rudder to keep the aircraft centered on the runway centerline. At 80 knots, disable the nose wheel steering by using the appropriate keybind to reduce oversteering as we increase our speed. Assuming the takeoff trim has been set correctly, the aircraft will pitch up off the ground and begin climbing away from the runway. Once you confirm a positive rate of climb, raise the landing gear and flaps. Now that we're in the air, press the AP button on the UFC to display the autopilot menu, then press the CPL push button to activate the autopilot's course tracking function and verify that waypoint 2 is selected on the HSI. You can also have the aircraft automatically advance to the next waypoint once you reach it by pressing the auto button at the bottom right of the HSI. It won't box while the CPL function is on, so you'll have to switch that off for a moment to enable auto, or you can just manually advance waypoints with the up and down push buttons. Climb to an altitude of 10,000 feet, then activate the BAL push button to hold the aircraft at desired barometric altitude. Double check that your altimeter mode switch is set to baro. Maintain an airspeed of 350 knots and continue flying toward waypoint 2 and await further instruction. Once you're at 350 knots, you can set the auto throttle on the aircraft using the appropriate keybind, T, to keep it there.
And that's what we'll do. So let me get it, let me get ourselves leveled off 10,000 and get our speed at 350. So we'll get our autopilot set, our speed. I'm just gonna 365 seconds. Alright, we'll auto throttle that, and now we'll fast forward through this part until we get closer to our waypoint. And once we get there, once we get close, we'll get some narration and start moving on to the next thing.
About a third of the way to Vaziani, and it's time to start thinking about how we're going to get this bird safely on the ground. Fortunately, the Hornet includes a feature that makes this incredibly easy. The Hornet is designed to land on aircraft carriers, which requires an extremely robust landing gear due to the fact that the aircraft needs to plant itself onto the carrier deck in order to catch the arresting wire and stop before it plunges off the side into the ocean. Because of this, the standard landing procedure does not require the flare typical of landing most other aircraft, so the Hornet pretty much just flies straight into the ground to land safely, assuming you have the aircraft at the proper angle and speed.
To disappear after a while.
To ensure that the aircraft is at the correct angle and speed, a new indication will appear on the HUD called the E-bracket once the landing gear is lowered. As the name suggests, it's a large E-shaped icon that appears on the left side of the HUD when the aircraft is configured for landing. To get you familiarized with the proper use of the E-bracket, let's disable the B-alt on the autopilot, slow down to less than 250 knots, then drop the landing gear and lower the flaps to full. Do your best to control the aircraft as the surfaces change, holding an altitude of about 10,000 feet and reducing your airspeed to about 170 knots. As the aircraft settles down, begin making small throttle and pitch trim adjustments to keep the speed at about 170 knots and the velocity vector aligned with the horizon indicator on the HUD. Once you're in the correct configuration and settled, press the I/P button at the top left of the UFC to signal me that you're ready for further instruction.
Alright, so we'll slow down to 250. Landing gear and flaps down. We'll practice the thing he told us to practice. I'm going to cheat and let the autopilot keep me here, because why not?
Now that we're configured for landing, you should see the E-bracket on the HUD. The movement of the E-bracket is primarily controlled with the throttle, though the actual way it works is a bit more complicated than that. For now, let's just assume that more throttle moves the E-bracket up, and less throttle moves it down. The E-bracket is meant to be used in conjunction with the velocity vector to get your aircraft at the proper angle of attack for a landing. To do this, first start by ensuring that your velocity vector is on the horizon to prevent loss of altitude, then slowly pull back on the throttle to bring the E-bracket down toward the horizon. As you do so, start slowly adding small amounts of nose-up pitch trim to keep the velocity vector locked to the horizon. The idea is to keep the velocity vector as stationary as possible with trim and bring the E-bracket down to it with the throttle. Avoid using the stick to make pitch inputs, as we need to get the aircraft trimmed properly so it stays at the proper angle by itself, and the stick doesn't do that. Once the E-bracket comes down to the velocity vector, your aircraft is set to the proper angle of attack for landing. Ideally, you want the velocity vector lined up as closely as possible to the middle mark of the E-bracket, but as long as it's within the upper and lower bounds of the bracket, you're fine. Take some time to get used to this idea, because we'll be doing this again when we approach Vaziani.
Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and fast forward through most of the rest of this now, because there's no reason. We're going to get to waypoint 3. That will line us up to the approach for Vaziani, however it is you pronounce that. And then we'll get another narration teaching it or telling us to repeat that process, but now go down. So that's what we're going to do. Hop our way over to waypoint 3. Alright, should be getting the turn here pretty soon. Should be getting the narration here pretty soon. We'll fast forward just a little bit more to make this a little bit faster, just to cut out some of the dead time.
We're pretty close to Vaziani now, and the autopilot should be turning the aircraft to the right to line up with the runway. Once the aircraft levels out, turn off the autopilot, reduce speed to less than 250 knots, then lower the landing gear and flaps. This time, though, allow the aircraft to begin a slow descent toward the runway. Once the aircraft settles down, adjust speed to about 130 knots. The speed is slower this time because we're actually landing. Once this is done, make small throttle and pitch trim adjustments to bring the E-bracket down to the velocity vector, then keep both placed on the end of the runway. Use the stick to make left or right adjustments to align yourself with the runway, but be sure not to make any pitch changes with it. Remember, when the E-bracket and velocity vector are paired, pitch is controlled with the throttle only. Resist the temptation to use the stick if the velocity vector slides up or down. Just add or remove throttle as required. Continue flying in this manner until the aircraft touches down on the runway.
So
As you get closer, place the velocity vector right on the runway numbers and prepare for a jolt.
The landing gear and flaps down and all that, get the trim set, and then we'll fast forward past all of this and just speed break this a little bit because it's taking us a really long time for the speed to bleed off. Okay, almost there. Oh, forgot to bring them. Alright, landing gear and flaps down, that'll get us to E-bracket. Bring the E-bracket down, speed. I feel like the autopilot's still screwing with me. Positively autopilot's still screwing. Doesn't always turn off the way you think it should. Like, it's too finicky for me to slow it down. I'd like the speed. I'd like to speed things up a little bit, but there we go. Actually, you know, come down a little bit more because we're going to slam on the ground if I try to land from this high up. All right, let's get the. I have to do the rest of this in real time because we're too close to the ground to be screwing with that. We're still way high. Be low enough now that this angle of the angle of attack will be fine.
Touchdown. Use the brakes and speed brakes to slow the aircraft down until you can make a safe turn off the runway to one of the taxiway entrances to the left.
Okay, almost there.
Taxi over to parking spot 1. You can locate it by accessing the F10 map and referencing it to your current location.
It's over there somewhere.
Once there, execute the shutdown procedure. The lesson will be complete once the aircraft is parked in spot 1 and completely shut down.
Okay, almost there. This is one of those things where you can speed things up with the time compression. That helps out a little bit. Oh, A little bit of control there. Okay. Gotta go a little bit past where the light is, right at the edge of the light here, I think, is where the parking for this is. Yep. Bulldogs. Turn off the navigation, turn off the radar, turn off volumes and comms, turn off the tacking, canopy, these all turned off. I believe we're supposed to turn the engine off now. And let's shift in. Gets all of that turned off. And battery off.
Good job.
All right.
Let's go grab a beer at the O Club. Then you should really get some rest. Training starts first thing in the morning.
Okay, so ideally we should be able to exit here, hit quit, we hit end mission, and we should have mission 3. Okay. So I'm definitely having an issue here. What am I doing? Okay, I think I might know what the problem is. Do I have the scoring set up at 50? No, it's supposed to be 100. My min score is if mission score is lower than 50, then make it 50. If the flag equals, okay, so I think whatever min score thing I put in here to make sure that you didn't have any less. Oh. Well, no, that shouldn't matter, right? Because there's no way for me to reorder it. Okay. I guess I have some testing to do before we can continue this. So, I'm not sure what's going on here. This should just make it so that if the mission score is lower than 50, make it 50. So that way you never have to worry about going back a mission. Then once you get flag 9999 set to being on, which the last step in all of this goes. So if you see, we did see this in the last one. If you see the last little message here, that means that this flag has been set to 1, and once that flag is set to 1, it should be doing that. So I don't know if I have to imagine this is a list of things to choose from, not one takes priority over the other, and especially once you set it to greater than 50, it should just be this should not work anymore. So I am not sure. I'm pretty sure this does, because this only the colors and stuff only matter if you're online. So I need to pick offline for all of these. Not sure why this is causing a problem. So I need to figure out a way to make sure. Maybe I just need to have a point. That means I probably need to go through one of these and just make it set the score to 50. Yeah, I think. Well, no, there's no way for me to do that though. I'll have to go through and do some logic. I'm not going to waste your guys' time with that, though. I'm going to go ahead and end this episode. If you enjoyed that, be sure to click the like button, spread the video around, subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers, join as a member for early access to videos, among other perks, or you can just leave YouTube's version of a tip with that thanks button. I also have a new link for a PayPal thing if you prefer to go that route. Check that down in the description below. So again, thank you for watching. Be sure to come back for the next episode. And if you would like to watch these live streams that I'm doing every day at 4 p.m. Pacific time, be sure to show up tomorrow for that. Thank you very much, and see you for the next one.